Hello, and welcome to Green Planet, where today we're talking to Dr. Linda Hamilton from our local environmental agency here in Chicago, who's going to tell us about some unusual environmental solutions. So, Dr. Hamilton, we've heard of flip-flops made from paper and roofs made of earth. So what other solutions are there to help the environment?
Thanks for having me, Chris, and please call me Linda. So, solutions. Well, there's a whole range of fantastic ideas these days, and I have two of my favorites for you today. I hope they can inspire everyone. The first idea is the air well. Now, air wells were invented to help in areas which don't have enough water for people. The majority of air wells are made of stones, but they can be made of metal like steel or aluminum. During the night, water vapor condenses on the stones and becomes liquid water. That water then runs down the stones and is collected at the bottom the next morning. Some air wells can produce many liters of water every day.
How interesting. So air wells don't need any kind of moving parts?
No, they don't. And that's what's so interesting about them. If you look up air well on the internet, you will just see a big stone building, a bit like a tower.
So they're basic, but very productive.
Exactly. The second is not exactly a single solution like the air well, but a concept called upcycling.
Isn't that supposed to be recycling?
No. Recycling is the way we find to use materials again for the same purpose. And there's also downcycling, when we use a high-quality product to make many lower-quality products, like turning writing paper into toilet paper. But upcycling is different. It's the idea of taking a product that is no longer needed and turning it into something that is both useful and environmentally friendly, using products we can't recycle easily. Tire walls are a good example of this.
Tire walls? You mean like using those black rubber car tires as plant pots?
Yes, but creating an entire wall. Imagine a wall that is made of tires filled with earth.
Why would anyone make a wall like that?
Tire walls are very strong, and they are good at keeping a home warm. The rubber tires contain a lot of earth, so they are very hard, almost as hard as concrete. During the day, the earth gets very hot in the sun, and at night, when it's cool, they release heat into the home to keep it warm. That's a very good example of upcycling. It's easy to do and very useful.
I wish I could come up with an idea like that. Thanks so much for joining us today, Dr. Hamilton. Sorry, Linda. Good afternoon, folks. We've got a great show for you today. Our topic is tech fears, and the question is, what scares you the most about technology today? We've got a caller on the line. Caller, can you tell us your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, my name is Sophia Sanchez, and I'm calling from Rolling Hills.
Hi, Sophia. So tell us, what's your biggest tech fear?
Well, I'm actually really proud of all the technology we have at our fingertips today, so I wouldn't say I have a really big fear. But one thing I worry about is information theft. You know, where someone breaks into your computer and steals all your data?
Absolutely. It would be a person's worst nightmare. Can you tell us why you worry so much about this?
Well, in my house, everybody uses a wireless device. My son uses a tablet, my husband and I use smartphones, and my daughter uses a laptop for all her schoolwork. What if somebody broke into the network and stole information, or even photos from any of us?
That would be a disaster. But I guess this is why we should all use strong passwords, use numbers and letters. You do use strong passwords on all your devices, don't you, Sophia?
Yes, and we change our passwords every so often. So really, that's why I'm not terribly worried. But that's my worst fear.
Understood. Well, thanks for calling, and keep those devices safe. We have our next caller. Caller, tell us your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Sam Flores, and I'm calling from Sherman Oaks.
Hi, Sam. So, what's your worst tech fear?
Well, I work in an automobile factory. I love my job, but what if someday they build a robot that can do what I do? I won't have a job anymore, will I?
Yes, that is a big worry. Tell me, are there any robots in your factory at the moment?
Yes, there is an area where robots put together some of the car parts. This is why I'm concerned. My job is to install electronics and test that they work. There isn't a robot that can do that at the moment, but I would hate to see someone make one.
I agree. Well, we have to do our best to find ways to make ourselves useful. Surely, there will always be something that humans can do that robots cannot. So keep working hard, Sam, and stay hopeful.
Thanks.
We have time for one more caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Trish Spencer, and I'm calling from Round Rock.
Hi, Trish. Tell me your worst tech fear.
We recently moved to a new neighborhood, and I've already seen 3 or 4 drones in the air. I don't know if they are our neighbors' devices or where they're coming from, but I don't like them at all.
And why is that?
Because someone may be using them to take photos or record videos. I saw one fly straight over my backyard, right over my head. If I had a rock, I might have thrown it.
Well, drones are sort of the new thing in tech, and people are probably just using them as toys. If you find out that someone is taking photos of you without your permission, you can call the police. I urge you to do that. Well, that's our show for today, and thanks for listening in. Up next, can people actually learn a thing or two from their house pet?
It's National Hispanic Heritage Month in the USA. So, for today's program, I'd like to honor a few Hispanic inventors who have given us some interesting and useful inventions over the years. I'd like to start off with a woman who was both an inventor and an astronaut. Ellen Ochoa, born in Los Angeles, California in 1958, is the first Hispanic woman astronaut, and her mission in April 1993 made her the first Latina to travel into space. She went on to do 3 more space flights, for a total number of 40 days spent in space. In addition to space travel, Ochoa invented a way to improve space exploration. She created a new kind of optical system, which is a system for seeing images and analyzing them. This greatly improved the job of astronauts. Moving on to the field of medicine, I'd like to mention the work of Carlos Finlay. Finlay, born in Cuba in 1833, did research into mosquitoes, those insects we all know and don't love for their annoying itchy bites. He discovered that they carry the deadly disease yellow fever. Before his discovery, people had no idea where it came from. As a result of his work, communities began killing off mosquitoes in order to stop the spread of the disease. It worked. Now for a little entertainment. Born in Guadalajara, Mexico in 1917, Guillermo González Camarena was an inventor of a type of color television, which he invented when he was only 17 years old. While he was not the inventor of the color television, his type of television sold particularly well. It took him some years to get his television on the market, and he sold his first set in 1954 for about $1,450. I did some calculations, and $1,450 in today's money is worth about $13,500. Last, we return to the skies with my next inventor, Juan Manuel Lozano Gallegos. Lozano didn't fly quite as high as Ochoa. We've all seen how a jetpack works. You put it on your back, and you use it to rise up into the sky. While he was not the inventor of the jetpack, Lozano did invent a type of jetpack that actually works. Born in Mexico, Lozano was amazed by jetpacks as a kid, and he spent 30 years developing it. He actually sells his jetpack today for around $125,000. While it does work, it doesn't take you very high, and he warns buyers that they will only be in the air for about 30 seconds before they have to land.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Mind in Society. Now today, I'm here with clinical psychologists Lucia Jimenez and Diana Partington, and we're going to be looking at a negative emotion, the feeling of regret. Lucia and Diana, I think we all agree that regret is a terrible thing, but that we all tend to spend a lot of time regretting things. Is that right, Diana?
Yes, indeed it is. Regret is something we all do because it's inevitable. You see, especially when an event occurs that we think of as big or important, our minds do something called counterfactual thinking. That's why regret is such a negative emotion.
And what is counterfactual thinking, Lucia?
Well, let me give you an example. Imagine you had just had some bad news. For example, being told that you had failed an exam. That situation might seem bad enough, but we then start imagining alternative realities where things happened differently.
You mean like, what would life be like if I had passed the exam?
Yes, but not just that, unfortunately. Counterfactual thinking also means that we tend to think, what if I had spent more time working? Or, I wish I hadn't wasted time playing video games. The problem with this is that you have already failed the exam. That's already happened, so there is nothing you can do about it.
So why do we do that to ourselves, Diana?
There are a few theories about this. One of them is that we do it to avoid making similar mistakes again in the future. We take the pain from counterfactual thinking as a lesson for the rest of our lives.
Ah, okay. So it's not all about humans just being negative creatures then?
No, not at all. In fact, it's an essential way of learning and surviving. Also, we tend to do this in advance as well. So, we could think to ourselves, if I don't pass that exam, then I won't get into college. And that makes us work harder to achieve our goals. The reality in this example is that we haven't failed the exam, but if we think about what it would be like, we want to take the necessary action to avoid it.
I see. But what if you have already failed at something? How can that be positive? What if, for example, you didn't get an A because you didn't study properly, Lucia?
That's actually a good example of the positive effects of counterfactual thinking. You see, if someone gets a C, they may feel better than someone who gets a B. That's because the situation appears different to them. Someone with a B might think, I wish I had got an A. But the person with a C is more likely to think, at least I didn't fail.
Very interesting. Thank you both for joining us.
Hey everyone, Chris Lopez from Chicago here with this week's podcast, Chris Thinks. So over the last few days, I've been feeling kind of down about a couple of things in my life, and I have to admit that I really let it get to me a little too much. So I don't want to miss the chance to share some of my ideas with you guys about how I've been feeling. So I guess what started this off was that I broke up with my boyfriend, Troy. If you've been following my podcast, you'll know he's a massive influence in my life, and he still is. But sadly, we've decided to call it a day. We both decided that we were spending too much time fighting about stupid stuff, and that wasn't helping either of us. I kind of wish we hadn't wasted all that time fighting, but I guess it was showing us that there were some problems that we needed to figure out. It's not like a permanent breakup, I hope, but we're taking a break for now. So then, about a day after Troy and I broke up, one of the colleges I'd applied to in the UK got in touch with me and offered me a place there to study English literature, and I turned it down immediately. I know you guys are probably thinking, Chris, you should have taken that offer. But I was really confused and I wasn't thinking properly. I wish I had told them I'd think about it and get back to them later instead of just turning it down right away, but it's too late now. But in any case, I've now decided I'm going to spend the summer working because I really need to earn some money before applying to college again in the fall. Anyway, what all of this has taught me is that although life can be really bad sometimes, everything happens for a reason. Troy and I have promised each other that we won't lose touch, and we'll see what happens. And I'm now thinking about studying English literature at a college a little closer to home. Well, that's all for now, guys.
Welcome to Life Beyond Earth, the show about the great outer space search for life. Today, we're going to discuss what it would be like to live beyond our planet, specifically the planned manned missions to Mars. Space engineer Nina Garcia is here to give us the details. Nina, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us why you're so excited about a manned mission to Mars. I mean, it's an incredible idea, but isn't it quite dangerous? And what do we hope to find there? Many scientists believe that Mars is too cold and harsh to support life.
You mentioned some good reasons why we shouldn't go there, but I'd like to share the reasons why we should. First of all, traveling to another planet is more or less a dream of mankind. We've traveled to the moon, and if you think about it, that was a historic event. So imagine what it would be like for someone to step foot on Mars.
But is that really enough reason to go? Just for the glory of it? I mean, I'm excited about a mission to Mars too. I'm just wondering how we humans would benefit.
As you say, scientists have determined that it's very unlikely that there is life on Mars. But as far as studying other objects in our solar system goes, Mars is the closest after our moon, so it's the next logical place to go.
Okay, so we've gotten past the reasons for going there. Let's talk specifics. First of all, how far away is Mars? And how long would it take us to get there?
Well, Mars is the second closest planet to Earth after Venus. We don't want to visit Venus, of course, because it's incredibly hot. Mars is very cold, but it has some conditions that are similar to Earth. At any rate, Mars can be between 34 million and 250 million miles away, depending on where Earth and Mars are in their orbits. So we would need to plan our mission very carefully. As for how long it takes, it could take from 6 to 10 months to get there if we plan it right.
Well, that doesn't sound too bad. I wonder, though, if people can be in space that long. Can you tell me how long a person has been in space?
Yes, that is a good question and an important concern. Russian astronaut Valery Polyakov spent 438 days in space on the Mir space station. This took place in the 1990s. More recently, American astronaut Scott Kelly spent 340 days in space in 2015 and 2016, the longest for any American space traveler.
In your best prediction, can astronauts really exist on Mars? I mean, for a long period of time. We see in movies that there are terrible dust storms and radiation, and the temperature is often freezing.
We are still looking into these things. The temperature on Mars ranges from 20 to minus 125 degrees Celsius. At its warmest, it is similar to Earth. Still, astronauts would have to wear a spacesuit if they were on the surface. There are plans to construct places for them to live and do research. So, the life of an astronaut on Mars would be building, doing research, and maintaining their environment. It sounds a bit lonely, but imagine how exciting it would be standing on the surface of Mars. Hi, folks! Recently, we have seen a trend in space funding. Some governments are giving less money to their space programs. There is a debate as to whether space exploration is helpful or not. For our program today, we're joined by astrophysicist Julio Diaz, space engineer Viola Cruz, communications analyst Jeff Gomez, and laser technician Steve Walker. So, our topic today is this: should we continue our efforts in space exploration? What does our panel have to say about this? Viola?
I believe that some people in government think that space exploration has not been worth it. It hasn't produced enough things to be worth the money we have spent on space travel. But let's look at it this way. Space exploration allows us to see what's out there and what could possibly harm us in the future.
I see. Julio?
I totally agree with Viola's point. We need to know if there is a meteor or a giant asteroid heading toward Earth. This is important for human survival, isn't it? Scientists recently concluded that a large asteroid had a 10% chance of hitting Earth in 8 years. That's a rather high chance, so we need to be looking out for these things.
Jeff, your specialization is in communications. Do you think we will ever be able to contact alien life forms?
There are a number of ideas about this. One is that there is life out there, but it's very basic. It's plant life, in other words, so we wouldn't be discovering intelligent life forms. So I suppose that is the best we have to discover, but that's fine. We would be discovering life, so that's important, right? Another theory is that there is nothing out there. I don't agree with this. We exist, so why wouldn't others? It must be possible that life exists somewhere out there in the universe. A third theory is that there are life forms out there that are like us, but that have the same limitations that we have: distance, lack of technology, etc. They want to find us and talk to us, but like us, they can't because they're not advanced enough.
Interesting. Steve, you believe that space exploration can help us create better equipment on Earth. Can you explain?
In our efforts to explore space, we have made discoveries that help us on Earth. Foil blankets, cordless devices, and memory foam are just a few examples. I specialize in lasers, which are used to cut through heavy materials like rocks and so forth. We use lasers in space to do this sort of thing. If we can improve lasers through space exploration, this technology can help us on Earth. Lasers help us in the medical field and with manufacturing. I'm confident that advances in space exploration can improve laser technology and life on Earth, so I support space exploration.
Well, we have heard from 4 different people about the value of space exploration. What do you think? Post your comments on our website and answer the question, is space exploration worth it?
You might not know who Christopher Blair is, but you may know some of his victims, mainly because they are famous politicians. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, the list is very long. But who is Blair, and what does he do? He writes news stories with very shocking headlines about famous people. This may sound like something that many journalists do, but in Blair's case, it's different. None of his stories are accurate at all. They are all invented. Blair is very good at this and has been called the godfather of fake news by the BBC. In the beginning, in early 2016, Blair created a website for fake news stories during the U.S. election campaign. He said many things about the presidential candidates which were not true. In fact, they were all lies. But people thought they were funny, and his stories got over 500,000 shares in a very short space of time. How? Because Blair had also shared his stories on Facebook. This obviously brought more and more people to his website. So he created another website, and then a third, and then a fourth. Blair soon figured out that this would make him a lot of money. And it did. Why? Because all this internet traffic then attracted advertisers to his websites. If he wrote a news story which over 500,000 people were looking at, companies wanted to put their advertisements on his websites. Blair was soon able to leave his job and make money just from writing fake news. Obviously, Blair also got many complaints about his stories. Many people started asking him to prove that his stories were true, so on his main website, he had to write the line, "Nothing on this page is real." But by then, it was too late. Finally, in November 2016, Google and Facebook said they would stop making it possible for people to earn money from fake news. And in December of that same year, many of Blair's websites closed down. So, was Blair's work just harmful lies? Or was it a funny way of showing people the effect that the media can have on the way we think? That's up to you to decide. What we can be sure of is that you might not be able to trust any of Blair's stories, but you can trust him to make you laugh. Because I'm the studio's investigative journalist, I had a project to look into a local family company who were apparently polluting a river. I didn't really believe it, but I went anyway. Unfortunately, the security guard refused to open the doors for me, and so I spent about an hour trying to get in through a window. I then tried calling them, and I spoke to 12 people, but no one knew anything about it. We finally found out that the company wasn't polluting the river anyway, so in my view, the whole thing had been a waste of time. I'll make sure we investigate properly in the future.
I have to say that sometimes my job as a newspaper editor can be very difficult. I get stories all the time, and I have to ask the reporters to change them. As you can imagine, they hate rewriting their stories. But I've been here for about 5 years now, and I have a good idea of what makes a good story, so I have to explain to the reporters that I am not criticizing them. I'm just trying to make our newspaper as good as it can be. They understand, so I feel like what I do improves the quality of journalism every day.
After I had done my training as a photojournalist, I had a really hard time because I had to spend hours waiting around in the cold outside celebrities' houses. I couldn't stand that type of work. I used to think to myself, why am I doing this? This can't be as good as it gets. But then one day, I was helping a new guy from Mexico in our office, and I was speaking to him in Spanish, and my boss offered me the chance to go to Colombia and start work as our magazine's foreign correspondent. Well, I accepted immediately.
So last week, we had the Prime Minister of Denmark in the studio, and I had to translate for her. I've been learning Danish for years, but it's not an easy language to learn, and even more difficult to translate what someone is saying in real time. So I was very nervous. But as soon as she started talking about their economy, I was able to follow everything she was saying and translate everything only a few seconds after she had said it. I felt all my training as a translator worked perfectly, and I felt good about that. It was such a great experience. Everyone at the studio congratulated me afterwards.
I had a terrible night last night. As the anchor in the studio, it's my job to read the news, and I normally read my lines from a television monitor in front of me. But last night, just after we'd had the World Series report from the sports journalist, the TV broke and the lines just froze. Of course, I couldn't say anything about the problem because I was on live TV, so when my producer finally understood what was happening, I'd been silent for 4 seconds. It doesn't sound like a long time, but it really is on live TV. It was so uncomfortable, especially because we have millions of people watching every night.
Hi, folks. We're on the street today to ask for people's opinions about TV talent shows. There seem to be a lot on TV these days, so quite a few people are watching them. I hope we get a wide range of opinions. Let's see what this young woman thinks about them. Excuse me, ma'am. We're doing a survey, and I'd like to get your opinion.
Sure, I'll participate.
Great. First, tell us your name. First name only.
Donna.
Donna, thank you. So, what do you think of TV talent shows?
Well, for the most part, I think they're okay. I don't really watch them that often because I'm not a fan of television. I do like to see talented people on TV, though. I think a lot of people on these shows aren't very talented, and to be honest, I feel a bit bad for them. Occasionally, though, you see someone with a lot of talent who really impresses you. So, I think that makes them really fun to watch.
Let's ask this young man what he thinks about TV talent shows. Hi, would you like to participate in our survey?
Okay.
First, tell us your name.
Gary.
Gary, thank you. So, what's your opinion of TV talent shows?
Oh, I really love them. I watch them all the time. I think there are a lot of great talent shows out there with a lot of talented people.
Is there a particular show that is your favorite?
Well, I like singing contests and variety shows, but I like the show Dance Off the best. My sister was on that show, actually, so my family and I watch it quite often. She danced with a professional dancer, and she competed against 7 other couples. She came in second place, so we were really pleased.
Do you think some talent shows feature people who aren't very talented?
Of course, but that's okay. I think it's interesting to hear what the judges say, and yeah, some people don't take it very well, and they have a bad attitude, but I think the level of talent in shows today is higher than it used to be.
Okay, well, thanks for your time, Gary.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can I ask you a couple of questions?
About what?
We're doing an opinion poll on how people feel about TV talent shows.
Okay, well, I personally don't like them.
Well, great. You don't have to. But can you explain why? And please tell us your name.
Oh, sure. It's Veronica, but call me Vero. Well, I think TV talent shows do a number of things that I don't like. First of all, I think they use people to entertain others, and in a negative way.
Really?
What I mean is, they will put people on stage who are clearly awful. Then we, as viewers, are supposed to laugh. I suppose not everyone laughs. I know I don't. But I think a lot of people do, and that's terrible.
Okay, that's a good point.
Second, I think TV is something that we watch to get away from everyday life. A TV talent show is like a reality TV show, only perhaps worse. There is no plot to it and no characters, so I think it's kind of boring. I'd rather watch a sci-fi series. I mean, that's the type of TV show I'm into, not comedies or love stories.
I see. Well, you've given us a very interesting opinion, and one that's quite different from what we've heard so far. Thanks for your time, Veronica.
You're welcome.
Hi, Mateo. Thanks for meeting with me today. I'm having such a frustrating time, and I could really use your advice. You know how hard it is to break into the fashion industry.
I'm happy to help, Delia. Yeah, I know how you must feel. Even though I've been a fashion designer for some years now, I've heard many difficult things from people in the business. An owner of a chain of retail stores told me, "You won't be successful in fashion. You should think about another career."
Oh, wow. I can't believe the owner told you that you wouldn't be successful and you should find another job.
I know. My first piece of advice would be to never give up on yourself. I told myself that a lot in the beginning.
Yes, well, I will definitely write that one down at the top of my list. What else can you tell me?
Well, don't be afraid to dream big. A big part of fashion is having a great idea for your collection. Don't create fashion that you think will please other people. Create the kind of fashion that inspires you. If you love the countryside, put nature into your work. If you love technology, make your fashion look modern and futuristic.
Okay, that's a start. Sometimes I have trouble finishing a piece of clothing. I can't stop working on it. I think, oh, let me try this and let me remove that.
Yes, sometimes it's hard to know when an item is complete. The best thing to do is to set your sights on a goal. Don't spend too much time on one piece. Set a time limit and say to yourself that you have to finish it in that time. Then leave it and move on to the next piece of clothing. You can always go back to it later if you think it still needs fixing.
Okay. What about getting your work in magazines? Don't you need to be well connected?
That helps, but it's a matter of being in the right place at the right time. You should try to attend as many fashion shows as possible. You never know who you might meet at a show. A fashion editor for Vogue, for example. Don't just stay in your studio all day.
Yes, I understand. What do you think about this? They say it isn't what you know, it's who you know.
I think it's both. You should try to meet people in the industry. I think we've covered that. However, If you don't know anything, you're not going to impress anyone, right? So I suggest reading about fashion trends as often as possible. Don't just stick with what you already know about fashion. Broaden your horizons.
Yes, of course. I love fashion and want to know as much about it as possible. Do you suggest I try to get my collection into a big fashion show? Or should I spend time doing smaller ones first? I don't want to waste my time with them if it's not a good idea.
You must be hungry for success. Do all the shows that you come across, even if it's a show in a small shopping center that hardly anyone goes to. You will gain the experience it takes to put on a successful show. I wouldn't put all your energy into getting seen in a major event. It's very competitive. And besides, if your lack of experience causes a problem, a lot more people will see it.
I see. Get my mistakes out of the way before I hit the big time.
Well, at least you're starting to believe you can hit the big time. I see my first bit of advice is beginning to have an effect on you.
How did you feel the last time you made a donation to a charity? I am sure you felt good about it, because of course it feels good to know that you are making a difference. But are you really? According to some experts, simply giving money away to charity doesn't mean we are necessarily making a genuine difference. Economist Tim Harford says that charity is selfish. We only do it to make ourselves feel good and not to really make the world a better place. The argument is that if we really wanted to make a positive difference, then we would find out exactly where our money was going. For example, if you donate $1 to a charity in the street, you get the instant feeling that you did something good. But are you sure you did something good? Did you ask the collector how they would be spending your dollar? Or does it feel good enough just to be a donor? The problem is that simply giving is not enough, because you don't know how a charity is going to spend the contributions that they get. Maybe a charity will say they help homeless people, and this, of course, sounds like a great reason to make a contribution, but it doesn't make sense unless you, and all the other contributors, really know how they are going to use your money. Robert Egger, who created an important charity project to help people who don't have enough to eat, thinks that it is often the most popular charities that get our cash. He thinks that we often give money to the charity who can sell themselves to us best. So, if all this is true, what should we do about it? It must be better to give than not to give, right? Well, yes. Don't worry, it still is. But before you give money or anything else to a charity in the future, ask them some questions. Where's my dollar going, and how are you going to use it to make a difference? That way, we can make sure that we are not only feeling good, but doing good as well.
I don't believe it. I've just tried to pay for our flights to Sao Paulo, and it says I've got no money in my account.
Really? Look, if you use that app I told you about, that kind of thing wouldn't happen. It's the app I mentioned that helps you manage your money and see how much you're spending from your bank account so that you don't overspend. It's even better than an accountant.
No, this has nothing to do with me at all. Look at the screen. It's impossible. It says I've made all these purchases with my debit card.
Well, you do buy a lot of stuff by contactless payment. Think of all those times we've been to the store and bought little things. Some cost $5, some cost $15, but you buy so many. They soon add up.
But according to my bank, there were 3 identical purchases of $500 at the supermarket on the same day. That's really weird, especially because I didn't go to the supermarket on that day. I think someone's got my account details, you know?
Maybe they have. Do you remember when that happened to me last year?
Yes, but that's because you left your card in the ATM. Nobody even needed to steal your personal identification number or rob you. Of course your money was stolen.
What do you think we should do?
I'll call the bank now and report those payments. They'll see that it's impossible, I'm sure.
Yes, good idea. They're normally very helpful with this kind of thing. In the meantime, we could pay by cash, but it's a lot of money. And I don't have a debit card anymore, but we could pay by credit card. At least then we don't have to pay for it all at the same time. And I think we might get a discount on the vacation with the credit card anyway.
Yes, okay. How annoying, though.
Hey, Sally. Have you got 15 minutes before our next meeting?
Sure, I'm not busy right now.
So, I've been trying to come up with a slogan for this product for a week now, and I can't decide which one would be better. Can I run them by you?
Of course. I'm in charge of managing the advertising budget, but I can give you my opinion as a consumer.
Okay, well, the product is the new brand of dog food that the company has been working on. So this is what I've come up with. The first one is Ruff's Dog Food. So good, dogs ask for it by name.
Oh, I like that. That's great.
The second one is Ruff's Dog Food. It may sound rough, but dogs think it's smooth.
Oh, Well, it's okay. I like how you use the word rough in the slogan, since it sounds like the brand name. I think I'd go with the first one, though. It's smarter.
Okay, thanks. I'll let the boss know.
Thanks, everyone, for coming to the meeting so quickly. We've got an issue with launching the product. It seems that there are some things missing from the launch. Can someone please explain what the problem is?
Yes. Well, the posters are being printed right now. The job arrived at the printers late. It seems there was a problem with the ad message. Anyway, they are working on it more slowly than I expected.
Well, you've had weeks to get everything ready to launch the product, so honestly, I can't see how this is anyone else's fault.
If I may say, this isn't the first time we've had a problem with the printers. I've had problems with them as well. They take forever.
Okay, so why aren't we doing something about that? We should be working with the fastest printer services out there. After we launch the product, we need to have another meeting about that.
Oh, look at this new brand of soda. I haven't seen this one before. It's cheaper than the one we usually buy.
Yes, but price isn't everything, is it? Cheap products sometimes aren't as good.
Well, we should give it a try. I mean, I love our usual brand, but it's good to try new things. And it'll save us a bit of money.
Yes, I hope the kids will like it. It'll be a waste of money if they don't.
I can always come back and get what we normally buy if they complain.
Mom, I just saw this great ad on TV for a new smartphone. It's the new version of my old one, and it's on sale for 50% off.
Okay, well, what's wrong with your old phone? It still works, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose. But the new phone has more features. It has a better camera, and it has more storage. My old phone is nearly full.
Okay, so what does 50% off mean exactly? What's the original price?
I think after you subtract the discount, it's $199.
What? So the full price of the phone is $400. I got my new phone a year ago for free.
Yeah, but it takes terrible photos, and it's very small.
Yes, but it was free. I got it with my phone plan. Why don't you tell me what kinds of phones you can get with your plan, and we'll talk about getting you a new one then.
Mom!
With us today is Jerry Garcia, advertising executive for one of the most successful ad companies in the region. She's here to talk about false advertising and what we can do to avoid its tricks. Thanks for joining us, Jerry. Tell us what your biggest concern is about false advertising.
Without a doubt, it concerns ads for health products and services. We see so much false advertising in this field, and what's terrible about it is it concerns our health and well-being. False advertising in any field is bad, but sometimes it's not the worst thing in the world. For instance, if a restaurant advertises a meal that doesn't really look like the one in the photo, it's not going to be harmful to your health.
Exactly. It's just not what you ordered.
Right. However, if an over-the-counter pill promises to improve your health but it doesn't, it might cause someone to avoid going to the doctor because they think the pill works.
I do see a lot of food products making claims that seem true, but you don't really see any proof.
Yes, well, that's probably because there isn't any. Companies can get in trouble for this. In the USA, consumers are protected by the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and they police this area. For instance, in 2010, the FTC accused Palm Wonderful, the makers of pomegranate juice and pomegranate pills, of making false claims. Statements such as prevents or treats heart disease had been put on the label, but they couldn't be proven.
I think many weight loss claims are believed, even though there isn't any evidence.
Exactly. It's not just adult food products that make false claims. It's also the companies that produce food for kids. Kellogg's, the cereal maker, put a claim on the box that said their cereal could help improve kids' immune systems. By eating their cereal, they could fight colds and the flu more easily. The FTC found out that the claim was false, and as a result, Kellogg's was forced to remove the claim.
Goodness, these false claims must hurt companies, right?
Yes, in fact, they do. The famous yogurt maker, Activia Yogurt, who uses famous actress Jamie Lee Curtis in their ads, lost a lawsuit over false claims. A judge decided that their health claims were false and awarded consumers $45 million. Furthermore, the judge said the company had to limit the health claims on their packaging.
I've eaten that yogurt plenty of times. Well, I may have to choose more wisely in the future.
I know people try to make good decisions about what they eat. I believe that's possible, although there are some companies to watch out for. We should read more about studies that health organizations have carried out and see what foods they recommend. Processed foods like cereals and fruit drinks often say all natural, but a quick read of the label shows that it contains loads of sugar. So, look at those labels carefully.
Thanks very much for your time. Real food for thought there.